Welcome back to Firefly Studios. My name is Kadia, and today we are going to continue with our Unity fundamentals, going over animation. So, to start off, we're going to go up to Window, and then we're going to go to Animation, and we're going to enable our Animation and Animator windows. I already have these set up. This one will be separate. It's going to be like this. If you just grab the tab, you can bring it down and dock it down at the bottom there. So for this example, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be animating a mushroom guy spear thrusting. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by setting up our guy. So mushroom man, this is an empty game object that I've created because we want to keep our art and our code separate. Because code is going to drive our animations, we're going to put the animations on the code component. So we're going to right click on it, or actually we're going to come to our art folder, and we are going to set up our art. So I just right click, import new asset. I imported my art. And then what you do is you select your art, you're going to change this to multiple, and then you're going to click the sprite editor button. Then we're going to go up to slice and hit slice. This is automatically going to slice your art up into components depending on where the blank space is. So I have two mushroom variants, and I've got, these are the arms for the mushrooms. This center little blue point right here, it's kind of hard to see, but it's right there. This is the pivot point. So for our arms, we're going to want to move by the base of our arms rather than the middle. So we're going to have to move all of our pivot points down to the thin part of the arm, so that way they will rotate correctly. After we do that, we're going to go ahead and hit apply. Then we can close out. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the spear. It's just a spear though, so I can just slice, apply, close out. Don't have to do anything fancy for the spear. And then we are going to set up our mushroom man. So if I click this little arrow, you can see all my components. I'm going to start off with the brown one. So I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to add his arms. Now, in order to make the sprites appear in the correct order, you can go over to this order and layer section over here in the sprite renderer component and put numbers in there. So I'm going to start off by making sure my background is at a negative number. The lower the number, the further away from the camera it is. So -10 means it's going to render behind everything. Then I'm going to go over to my body. I can leave that on 0. And I'm going to set my arms at -1. So I put you at -1 and you at -1. You can see over here in the game window that the arm's now behind. I'm going to go over to the scene window. Now I'm just going to position the arms where I want them to be. So we'll put one there and one roughly equivalent on the other side. I'm not a huge fan of those. We'll move them down a little bit. There we go. And then we just need to bring our spear in. So I'm going to make it a child of the body. So that way when I move the body, particularly when the body gets rotated, everything's going to rotate with it. I just need to set the scale of my spear to what I want it to be. So we'll shrink you down a little bit. We'll actually use this. Shrink it down. Move it over here. Hey, a little bit bigger. If you hold down the shift key, it will scale it evenly, proportionally. So I'm going to scale it to about that point. And then we'll switch over to rotate. Get it all lined up to how we like it. I'm going to go with that. And then I want that to look like the hand is around the spear. So I'm going to put the spear at a lower level than the hand. So I'm going to put -2 on it. And that's going to be our little mushroom dude. Alrighty. Now that we have all that set up, we can jump into animating. So we're going to go over to this animation tab, make sure we select the mushroom man, and we're going to hit create. I'm going to go to my assets folder. I'm going to create an animations folder. I already did this, so you'll have to do it. And here we're going to start off with the idle animation. An idle animation, as you notice, it'll automatically add a animator component to our mushroom man. But an idle animation is an animation that things do when they're at rest. So it's kind of like a default pose. In most games, it'll be like maybe a guy shifting his weight a little bit, or kind of like leaning on a building or what have you. Something where there's not a lot going on, just a little bit that kind of tells you like, hey, this is a living thing. So for our purposes, we're going to keep it even simpler than that. We're just going to have a single keyframe of our dude just standing there. The way we're going to do that is we're going to click this add property button, and we're going to go down to our mushroom. Actually, let's rename some things to make it easier. We're going to call this body, and then we'll have our left arm and our right arm. I'll do L arm and R arm. And then we're going to go to our idle. We're going to go body, and then we care about its transform. You can animate many things. It's not just like where a thing is. Anything that is on a component, you can animate. So you can do this for all sorts of things, like changing the skin of a character, or changing the color of a character, or what have you. In this case, we're just going to do something super simple. After we do this, we're going to go here to this drop down and select create new clip, and we're going to make an attack clip. Our attack clip is going to have the spear thrust forward. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to hit this little red record button. I'm going to move along the timeline. You can drag in the top here where the numbers are, or you can just click. And then I'm going to select my spear, and I'm going to move it forward and rotate it a little bit. So it's something like that. And then I'm also going to select my arm. And notice we're still in the same spot in the timeline. Now I'm going to move my arm forward a little bit and rotate my arm. Get it where I want it. So it's all lined up. Then I'm going to go forward, let's say a full second. I'm going to copy this. I can just highlight it and do Control-C to copy. I'm going to paste it. This will give it a little bit of staying power. So it's going to look like it pauses for a second while it's out. This will give emphasis to it to make it feel more like a solid hit. And then we'll go out a little bit and we'll copy the first frames and paste it so it resets. So our spear thrusters, we're going to go out, we're going to hover there for a little bit, and then we're going to withdraw. It's pretty basic right now, but it works. I'd say it hovers out there just a little bit too much. So you can just drag these and then, or highlight to select those, and then you can just drag them on the timeline to make them happen quicker. So now it looks like that. That's a little bit better. I'd say we could probably move the end here back a little bit. So I'm gonna just tweak it a little bit, get it to something that I like. Yeah, I like that. All right, cool. Now we need to hook it up with our code and with the Animator so that we can control what animations happen when. The way we go do this, the first part is to go to the Animator component. And if I select my Mushroom Man, you're going to see some things. So these two squares right here, my idle and attack, are the two animations I made. I've got an any state, an entry, and an exit. So what are all these? These are different states that our guy is in. So entry is whatever this is connected to is the animation that will play by default. As soon as the thing spawns, this is what he's doing. Any state is if you want to move from any animation into doing something. We'll do that in a little bit. And then these are our animations. So we need to go from idle to attack, and then we need to go from attack back to idle. So the way you do that is you right click on it and click make transition, then bring it down to whatever you want to transition to. So I'll do one going both ways. And then you can modify your transition values to get it to behave how you want. So we want to go from attack to idle. We'll start off with this one when we have fully played our attack animation. So the way we set that up is we drop down the settings tab over here on the inspector. We say that its exit time is 1. So down here you see it plays the full animation, and then it blends the two animations together for 0.25 of a second, and then it goes into the idle animation. We don't want any blending because we want it to feel snappy. So we can just set our blending to 0. And now that's set up. To go the other way, we only want to attack when, for instance, the player presses a button to attack. So in order to do that, we need to come over to our parameters tab and add a new parameter. I'm going to go ahead and add a trigger parameter. This is something that's just triggers it. That's it. Super simple. It's in the name. And we'll just call this attack. I'm going to note how I spelt it, so we'll use this in our code. It's going to be lowercase a attack. And then if we go to our idle animation, we can just hit this plus near the conditions. And because we only have one, it's going to default to attack. We can assign our own later on if we wish. And then we need to, in order to make it snappy, we don't want we want to be able to snap over our idle animation at any point. So we're going to set our exit time to 0. So as soon as the button is pressed, we're going to launch straight into our attack animation. We're going to also get rid of the transition duration for the same reason. We want it to immediately go into our attack duration or attack animation. So now we just need to plug it up in our scripts. So I'm going to select my Mushroom Man. I'm going to attach my animation script. This is a script I've already made, and we're going to go over it now. All right, our script is loaded. We have a pretty simple setup here. We've got a private animator, my_anim, and then we get, this isn't find object, this is get component animator. So what we're doing here is we're setting that variable equal to this animator. That way we know that we care about our animations. Then in our update, we've got it set up so that if we press one button on the keyboard, our animation is going to happen. If we press the 2 keyboard, we're going to do something else. So for now, we will set up just this. And the way you call the trigger is you just do your animator.setTrigger. For the other options, if you look here, we have float, int, bool, so on and so forth. It's pretty much the same. It would just be my_anim.setBool or setFloat or set what's the other one? Int. I believe it might be setInteger. Set integer. And then you just give it the name. So in our case, it's lowercase a attack. I already got it set up. And then we can test it out. So if we go to our scene, I'm going to press play. And then once it loads, I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard. And you're going to see, we stab. Excellent. Built in, because we're using the animation for this, we have an attack speed. So if I spam 1, we still attack at the same rate. Now, one thing that's even cooler, because of, in this kind of use case, if you want your animation to determine your attack speed, we can actually call scripts in our animation. So what we did here is I created a function called onAttack and made it public. And it's just going to debug.log we attacked. Normally in a script, what you could do is you can make it like make a collider, and anything that's close to it, take damage or what have you, whatever you want to happen, spawn an enemy, whatever. And what we can do is we can go to our animation, go to our attack animation, find a point in our animation. So for me, it's right here when the spear is fully extended. We want to add in an event. That's this little button right here. And what this event allows us to do is select a public function on a script that is on the same object as the animator. So I selected our onAttack button. So what's going to happen is when I press 1, we're going to stab, and then we see in the console at that point in the animation, it does the debug. Very useful. You can do a ton of cool stuff with that. One other thing of note is the fact that you can have looping animations or play once or like one-shot animations. And the way you do that is you go to the actual animation file and you mess around with the loop time. So for the attack animation, I don't want it to loop, so I'm going to just uncheck it, because that's just only ever going to happen once. But our idle animation, we could be idling for a long time. We do want that to loop. And then this icon right here, this is the Animator component that was auto-created when we created the animation. So the next thing we're going to mess around with is animating a different type of component. So I'm going to make a new animation, and we're going to call this skin anim. And this is going to access our sprite component. If you notice, since we added the script, we can now access the script. We're going to go down to our sprite renderer on our body, misclicked, and go to the sprite component down here. And we can delete the last keyframe. We're going to go here, and we're going to change our sprite of our body. We're going to hit this little record button, so it'll record any changes we make, and we're going to change this to the blue one. So when this animation is called, we're going to change skins. Just going to save real quick, go to our animator, and now we've got our skin anim. And we want this to be able to happen from any state. So I can just make a transition here. And this is going to happen when we, for this example, let's use a bool. So we're going to do change hat. Sure, we'll go with that. And then we'll click this transition. We'll hit the plus. We'll choose change hat from the list, and we'll do it when the variable is true. We will say that there is no exit time and no duration or transition duration. We just want it to instantly just change our hat. So we'll save it, and then we just need to plug it into our script. So right here, when I press the 2 button, we're going to do mynm.setBool, and we're going to go with change hat. And then for set bool, it requires 2 parameters. It needs to know what we're changing, and it needs to what value to. So we're going to change it to, helps if I spell it right, true. So it'll enable that bool. And then we'll say, when we attack, we're going to set it to false, so it stops playing the animation. First, we're going to turn off the old animation before enabling the new animation. So we're going to go set bool, change hat, false. Drop a save. All right, and hit play, and let's test it out. So if I press 2, we change into our new mushroom hat. Press 1, and the animation doesn't work properly. That's because it's locked in to this animation. Now if I press 1, it'll work correctly. That's a bug that sometimes happens. Most of the time, that won't be an issue though. Thank you for spending the time to watch this video. I hope you found it informative. If you could, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day.